Hi, my name is Benny Quakes. I'm a former Paralympic athlete and gold medalist. Now, as we try and navigate our way through these really difficult and unprecedented times in life, I think it's important to remember that life doesn't put hurdles in front of us that we cannot handle. I believe everything happens for a reason, but sometimes when we hit one of life's little hurdles, it does sting a little bit. I hit mine, I was 21 years old, I was travelling in Australia and I was involved in a car crash. And the result was I actually lost my arm in that accident. I was transferred to the local hospital where I was stabilised, and then they moved me off to Major Injuries Hospital where the surgeon finished, I guess, what I just started. After a short stay in hospital and a period of rehabilitation in Australia, I was ready for my journey back to the UK. But on returning to the UK, I decided straight away immediately I was not going to give up on life. I was going to get back out there and give life a go. For this, I chose what I like to call the Jack Daniels Road to Rehabilitation. Now, this wasn't about drowning my sorrows in a bottle. It was about being 21 and having something traumatic happen to me. And I found the easiest way to deal with that was to be with my friends and to socialise. And yes, I found out a little bit of Jack Daniels goes quite a long way. Maybe a lot of Jack Daniels went quite a long way. But having finished this period of my life, I decided it was truly time for me to put my life back on track. For this, I chose what always has been, always will be my true love, my true passion, the medalist sport. And I chose what is my true love, rugby. I went back to my local rugby club, which is Thurrock in Essex. I do apologise. I always feel like I have to apologise for being an Essex boy. But I think if you do apologise, I may get liked, maybe get trusted. But I went back to the club, not initially to play again, but just to get fit and enjoy the social side of the sport. And this I did. But it soon became apparent that training would never be enough. You see, before my accident, I played representative rugby. And I played for Essex and the Eastern Counties of England. And I had the dreams and the aspirations that maybe one day I could be a professional player, or even bigger, wear the white shirt of England. Now, I believe you can do anything you put your mind to in life, but sometimes you've got to be realistic. And let's face it, chances for a guy with one arm to run out against the All Blacks, it's never going to happen. So for me, it was just about getting that game back on track. So the date was set for my first match. It was 1 year post-accident, just 1 year after losing my arm. It was full contact, able-bodied rugby. And this clip I'm going to show you is that very first game back, me stepping back onto the park.
5 minutes to the kick-off of a match that he's been thinking about for months, and the tension's beginning to show. He needn't have worried. 4 minutes into the game, and the perfect way to settle those nerves. That was one hurdle out of the way, but what about that first tackle? No problem. Thurrock fourth, studded with ex-first teamers, gave their opponents from Gravesend a runaround. And let's face it, would you have wanted to be the Gravesend right winger yesterday? Now, Danny couldn't score a hat-trick in his first game back after 2 years out of the game. Could he?
Good, Danny! It's all yours, son! It's all yours!
He even got to take the conversion. Well, you can't have everything.
So that was it, my first game back. No longer with the dreams and the aspirations of playing for England, but just truly enjoying being back in the sport that I love. And I believe to this day that was probably the most important step I ever took on my road to recovery. Because that was the moment I realised, yes, traumatic things can and will happen to us in our lives, but it doesn't stop us from having dreams and aspirations. It doesn't stop us from doing the things we truly love. That was the moment I realised, yes, I lost my arm in a car crash, but it wouldn't stop me from playing the sport I love, rugby. And I played week in, week out for many years after that. Still occasionally have a run out to this day. But that was my sport back on track. I was now left wondering what I could do to earn a living. Now, when I left school, I did an apprenticeship, I trained up in the petrochemical industry. I knew I could go back into engineering, but I also knew it was really difficult because of those two aspects of the work, the very heavy manual work and the very fine intricate work. But I didn't see it, I lost my career. I saw it as an opportunity to find a new one. And I got to thinking about what I could do next. Now, whilst I was in Australia, before I had my accident, I learned to scuba dive. And I learned to scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef. And I don't think it gets much better than that. And I noticed pretty early on what an amazing job those instructors have. I thought how cool it must be to be the person that introduces people to the underwater world and to be responsible for them while they're down there. And if I'm going to be open and honest with you, I noticed pretty early on, when you have a male instructor on the boat, a lot of the ladies paid me quite a bit of attention. I figured I'm the guy that stands at the front of the boat and all the ladies looking at me. And introduce people to the underwater world and everything else that goes with being a diving instructor. It's like many things in life, you don't just become something. You have to train up, you have to pass exams. This I did. I passed my final exams and I worked on the Great Barrier Reef for 9 months teaching people to dive. As jobs go, I haven't had a better one. I wasn't sitting on a boat somewhere, I was sitting on the beach. But with Australia, the visa came to an end. Having left the crystal clear blue waters of the Great Barrier Reef, being a young Essex boy standing there looking at the Thames one day, it's just not the same. And I was left wondering how I could use scuba diving within the UK without getting cold. Now, this is how I embarked on the daftest job I've ever done in my life. I saw an advert in a national newspaper and it said, window cleaning required. Must be a qualified scuba diving instructor. And I figured, hey, I should have read the small print. It said, must not be scared of sharks. Now, this job was at the Sea Life Centre. I'm sure many, if not all of these sea life centres somewhere in the world, they're pretty much the same. In amongst it somewhere will be a huge glass panel tank, tunnel underneath for people to walk through, and the same thing on the inside, the sharks. This one was no different. So I went on to my interview and they said, Dan, here's the thing. What we're going to do is 4 times a day, we're going to pack this auditorium with 200 people. And the staff are going to do a presentation. And they're going to explain to the general public that sharks are not a big scary magnitude. To prove this fact, we need to find somebody of lesser intelligence and explain to them it's a great idea for them to jump in the tank and swim with the sharks. You've just arrived. As I'm sure you can imagine, I was a little bit concerned at this stage. In that tank at the time was 20 sharks. The biggest one, 9 foot long. So he introduced me to a marine biologist and he said, Dan, you've got a little power. He said, don't worry, the sharks are fine. We hand feed them at night. They're no problem. I said, my first question, when you jump in a tank that has 20 sharks in it, how do they react? And he went, well, to be honest, never been in there. That was my interview, done. We've now filled the auditorium with 200 people, the staff are downstairs explaining to the general public that sharks aren't big scary manators. I'm sitting on top there, feet dangling in the water, waiting for my cue to go in and questioning that very statement about sharks not being dangerous. On cue, I went in with 4 dives a day for the whole summer holiday period. Looking back, great fun. Looking back, slightly older, who knows, maybe wiser. Not 100% convinced if you saw a guy in Shark Tank that's only got one arm, I'm going to convince you they're not that dangerous. In terms of marketing, not quite sure we got it right, but we had a lot of fun trying to convince people. So having finished that period in my life, it was once again time for me to move on. Now, this is how I got back into sport, back into athletics. I met some athletes that competed at the 96 Atlanta Games, and I listened to their stories about what it's like to represent Great Britain, and even bigger, what it's like to go to the Games. Now, I don't know when it happened, I don't know how it happened, but inside of me something was ignited. A dream, an ambition, a goal, you can call it what you will. It didn't amount to becoming a champion. It was about becoming an international athlete. So I said about that dream, and in 1998, I got the first international call up. Back in those dark ages, it came in the form of a written letter. It said, congratulations, Danny Craig, you have been selected to represent Great Britain at the 1998 World Championships. I used to run the one lap back then, 400 metres. I got through to the final, which was much further than I've ever expected to progress in my first international. This photo is taken me just coming off the last bend. We've got about 90 metres to go. If you could have read my mind at that moment in time, I truly, honestly, naively believed that I could win a medal. This next photo is taken about 10 metres further down the track. I'm now finding out why the 400 metres has such a ferocious reputation. I finished that race 8th in the world, but to me, that was just last in the final. I congratulated the winners and I made myself a promise. And that promise was, it didn't matter how hard I had to work to get there, I was prepared to do whatever it took to get onto that podium. Now, in the next 2 years of my life, I was about to find out it's not always the big changes in making a life that make the big differences. Sometimes it is those subtle little changes, the ones that are much harder to implement and take a lot longer for into place. But they're often the ones that lead us on to greater things. The big change, I left my local training group, a group I trained with for many, many years, and I joined a group of international athletes and a world-renowned coach. But it was about those subtle changes. It was about changing my lifestyle, making sure I wasn't going out so much, my diet was better, my medical attention was better, I was resting more. It was actually about changing from somebody that just trained like an athlete to becoming an athlete. Hopefully that was the difference that would lead me on to greater things. So Sydney 2000, my first Paralympic Games. To explain to you what that feels like as an athlete is impossible. Just give an example of the sheer size of the Paralympics. It's the second biggest multi-sport event on earth, second only to the Olympic Games itself. Just the Great Britain team alone is 350 strong. We flew out to the Gold Coast in Australia, and from there we moved down to the Athletes Village. The Gold Coast we had as a holding camp. The idea of the holding camp is where we get over the journey, get used to the climate, do our final bits of preparation. Most importantly, we try to relax. Because when we set foot in that village, the village is where all the athletes will live. It's just like any town you live in, rows and rows of houses, sleeps about 10,000 people. The only difference between our village and where you live is we have a huge security fence around the outside. On the inside, we have a whole street of Great Britain, all the Union Jacks flying out the front. Across the road is Canada. Pop around the corner, you have Australia. It's an amazing experience. But for me, I was only there for one thing, and that one thing was business. And my business for me is athletics. I got through to the final of the men's 400 metres, and I was tipped as one of the favourites to take a medal. Now, this photo is me just about to start that race in that final. And the race you're going to see now is the men's 400 metre final from Sydney 2000.
Gold medal. Well, Danny Crates, coached by A.O. Falola, who will have brilliant memories of this stadium because he coached Donna Fraser to 4th place in the Olympic final. Danny Crates, a training partner of Donna Fraser, gets away well. And outside Danny Crates is Fernandez of Spain, and already Crates is closing him down, but two inside Danny Crates. Heath Francis of Australia, a massive cheer for the Australian. And Sousa of Brazil is just going past Danny Crates as they approach 200 metres. Two from the outside is Lansima of Nigeria. He's just 17 years old, he's running well. And outside him, Liang of China. But here comes the Brazilian Sousa and the Australian. Danny Crates has got a bit of work to do, 100 metres to go. The Australian hits the front for the first time in the race. Heath Francis of Australia, can he hang on? Can Danny Crates come back? It's so close. I think it's going to be Australia just. Heath Francis wins it, Sousa in second, and Danny Crates, oh, how he tried. He picks up a bronze medal, but this young Australian cannot believe what's happened. Heath Francis, on paper, was the only athlete here who'd gone under 50 seconds prior to this final, and he just held his form beautifully.
He certainly did, but Danny Crates will be disappointed with that run. 400 metre running is all about running a balanced race, and unfortunately Danny Crates, well, he went off far too conservatively. He had too much to do over the second half of the race, and as a result he was straining, he was under pressure, and his technique started to fall apart. So just 3rd place for Danny Crates.
And it's time.
Just 3rd place, only number 3 in the world. But he was right. You saw how close that race was. That was 0.22 of a second, gold, silver, bronze. The speed you blink your eyes, 3 of us across that finish line. I moved my heart and made over a quarter of a second's worth of mistakes. That one night in Sydney, I didn't win the bronze. I actually lost the gold. Now, as an athlete, that is really hard to take, and it takes a long time to come back from. But you have to. It's just another one of life's little hurdles. And it's how we overcome these hurdles in our lives. That's what enables us to go on and achieve greater things. Over the next 4 years, I had many highs, many lows, but also that burning ambition, that burning goal, and actually crowned champion. I was also going through a period of change. I was stepping up a distance. I was now racing over 800 metres. Now, this proved to be the right move. In 2003, I took my first major title, the World Indoor Championships. But for me, it was all about Athens 2004. 2004 started out really well for me. 2 months before the Games, I broke the world record for the men's 800. That showed me I was in the best shape of my life. But with that comes pressure. Pressure the team puts on you, pressure the media puts on you, but most importantly, the pressure we put on ourselves to be the best that we can be. but I was better equipped to deal with that pressure. I've now been training with, and most importantly, learning from other international athletes for many, many years. I went to the games a much more experienced athlete. I got through to the final of the men's 800, and I was tipped as one of the favourites to take a medal. Now in sport, we often talk about performing under pressure, and I don't think anything sums it up as well as this photo. This is me just sitting on my lane marker, and I know that in about a minute's time that gun is going to go. Once that gun goes, in less than 2 minutes of the gun going, my entire athletics career will be defined. My 12 years international athletics comes down to less than 2 minutes, that one race. Tens and tens of thousands of hours of training, hundreds and hundreds of races won and lost are going to come down to this one moment in time. And I have to be the first to admit, what I did was not life and death. Running in a circle around the track twice, no one's going to die if I get it wrong. But when you're in that position, when you're on that track, there's over 35,000 people in that stadium. I've got over 30 of my friends and family just to the right-hand side of me, and there's millions upon millions watching live on TV, and you know you only get one shot. There is only one chance to get it right. The pressure is immense. So how do we deal with it? How do we make sure we don't crumble under that pressure? How do we perform in that arena? We keep it quite simple. We use 3 simple words. Control the controllables. There's no point me worrying if it's raining that day and I like to run in the sun. There's no point me worrying if the guy on the outside of me broke world record 2 weeks before, but he didn't, by the way. And had he, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't do anything about the fact if I had a bit of stomach upset or I've been ill in the build-up to the games. All I can control is that all my preparation was done right. I can control that I've rested properly, my diet's been good. Every time my coach set me a training session, I did it to the best of my physical and mental ability. I can control all those things. But there's no point in wasting my time worrying about the other stuff. And we have to make sure we've left no stone unturned. So when I stand on that start line, I know that when that gun goes, I can give it everything I've got. And if I cross that finish line and I win, it's because of the hard work. If I cross that finish line and I don't win, it's because somebody just had a better race than me that day. And I can shake that hand and go, congratulations, you was better than me today. I'll get you next time. But I hold my head up high, whichever result I get from that. So we have to make sure that we don't cut any corners in the build-up to things. And I'm sure everyone will remember those days when you was doing exams, stepping into the exam hall. You're all jovial outside with your friends, and then suddenly you step across the threshold into the hall, and you're on your own. And that weight suddenly comes down on your shoulders. You know, you'll have the subjects that you prepared for, the ones you knew you wanted to do well in, and you probably feel quite confident with that. You'll open up the exam paper and you'll either know the answer or you won't know the answer. There's no in between. And sometimes you don't know it, you just don't know it. There's no more you could have done, and you just leave that question and come back to it. But we all know those exams that we didn't prepare for, the ones we weren't that bothered about, and we was quite jovial outside, but the feeling was very different when you open that exam paper and you suddenly thought, I wish, if only. And that's how we do it in sport. If you stand on that start line with all those people looking at you, if ever there's a doubt in your mind, that's when it'll get you. Because if it's not getting you already, when you stand on the start line and you look up, you suddenly see yourself on jumbo screen all around the stadium, and you realise you're standing there in a skimpy pair of shorts. If ever there's a doubt, it's going to bite you. So we have to make sure that we're not worrying about stuff that we don't need to worry about, control the controllables, and leave no stone unturned. So, Athens 2004, I got through to the final, and this clip you're going to see is that race, the men's 800-metre final, Athens 2004.
One of the Algerians, he looks so comfortable, qualifying as fastest from the 2 semi-finals. And Danny Krates is going to settle down, I think, in first place. The tall figure is Umar Cohn of the Ivory Coast, coming across to sit on his shoulder in second place. Stuart.
Well, Danny Krates has got the pedigree, certainly. He looks very comfortable at 200 metres. They've slowed just a little, and that was probably Danny Krates instigated that. Behind them now is Nkundabera of Rwanda. He's come up to take over the lead with Krates tucked in on the inside. One of the 2 Algerians, Nouia, in third place, and then behind him the Portuguese Monteiro. So it's pretty slow at the moment, but now it'll start to wind up as they approach 400 metres, I would think, with Nkundabera taking the lead.
Nkundabera is going to lead them through 400 metres. They hear the bell. Danny Krates sitting comfortably in second place. being led at the moment by Rwanda's Nkundabera. And the tall figure in the white vest of Cone, the world record holder, looking ominous. Coming around the outside, though, is an Algerian, Essaoui, and Nui Ouar. Now, where is Danny Kraetz? He's forced his way to the front again. Kraetz of Thurrock Harriers, a good 400-metre runner, but now potentially a great 800-metre runner. Danny Kraetz going for gold. There's only 200 metres to go.
Well, and Nkundabera there holding his form, and right on the outside, as you said, Nouihar of Algeria, who was a silver medalist in the African Championships, now running wide of Danny Kraetz, and Nouihar giving him real pressure. Now, this is the real test for Kraetz. What's he got in the home straight? He's got the inside lane, and he's coming away, I think.
About 80 metres to go, and Danny Kraetz is going for gold. There is no doubt at all who is the best 800-metre runner in the Paralympics. It's Danny Kraetz of Great Britain. He absolutely tore the field apart. He did some real damage in that last 200 metres. And so the Corringham fan club of Danny Kraetz can go wild now. And that is exactly what they're doing. Danny Kraetz.
I finally achieved my dreams and I became a Paralympic champion. As I'm sure you can imagine, to try and put that into words is impossible. The only thing I can do is share with you what those dreams were. Because that moment in my life was 7 years in the making. And I dreamt for 7 years what it would feel like to come off the final bend in a race and realise I had potential to achieve my dreams. And I dreamt for 7 years what it would feel like to cross that finish line and realise I had done it. And then the bit that every athlete will dream, stand on that podium, have the medal around your neck, and then the bit that gets everybody, the national anthem. And as I'm sure you can imagine, reality just left all those dreams behind. There's one dream I haven't had. And that's what it would feel like to have over 30 of my friends and family in the stadium with me that evening and listen to them sing the national anthem, albeit pretty poorly. But that is my most outstanding memory today, not because I won the medal, but because everything came together to make it the perfect night. So if you achieve something you've worked so hard for so long in life, business or sport, what is there left to do? Well, I believe it's simple. You have two choices. You can either sit back for 20 or so years and do nothing but tell everybody that same old story about how you achieved your dreams. Or you move on. You set yourself new ambitions, new goals. For me, it was easy. Move on. Prove to the world that wasn't a one-off race, but I could consistently be a world beater in athletics. My first chance to prove this came in 2005 at the World Cup, which I managed to lose pretty well. 2006 was a big year for me. It was the World Athletics Championships. It was my third attempt. I've never won an individual medal. It was always the one I got wrong. So the pressure I was putting on myself to succeed was huge. Thankfully, in 2006, on the third time of asking, I was finally crowned the world champion. But there was one major thing left to do. Defend the title in Beijing 2008. Now, 2008 started out really well for me. I was training in South Africa and deemed to have been in the best shape of my life. Never fitter, never faster, never stronger. I came back to the UK, I was doing the best training sessions I've ever done. But I went into the physio one day, I had a sore back. I got on the bed, on the physio bed, he pressed my back, I went into spasm, and I was actually unable to move for 2 hours. It later emerged that I'd torn a disc in my spine. After a short period of recovery, I was back on the track, but it wasn't long till I damaged my calf muscle. Coming off that, I had Achilles problems. I actually found myself unable to run from March to July of 2008. All I could do was cross-train on the bike, in the pool, in the gym. But I never stopped believing I would make Beijing. I never stopped believing I would defend that title. In July, there was a window of opportunity and I was running again. I hit the track pretty hard, pretty fast. And I managed to get my qualifying standards and make it onto the GB team. But sadly for me, by the time I transferred out to China, the speed of my comeback was playing its toll. Once again, the injuries were starting to plague me. But if ever my determination started to falter, there was one thing that was keeping me going. And that is that my name was on a list. And that was a list of nominated flag bearers. Now, as any athlete will tell you, to have the honour to lead your team out in the opening ceremony is one of the greatest honours you can ever have bestowed on you. Thankfully for me, the night before the opening ceremony, they announced that I'll be the one that would lead out Team GB. And to this day, the pinnacle of my athletics career, to walk out in front of 80,000 people with the entire British team behind me. Sadly for me, that huge high lasted less than 24 hours. Because the very next day I was in preparation for the race and I re-tore that calf muscle. And that there and then ruled me out of Beijing 2008. And I took a really tough decision. I left Beijing early. I flew back to the UK to recover, recuperate, and get over that 5-month period of my life and my career. Now, in life when things go bad, I believe you have the same two choices as when it went well. You can either sit back for 20 or so years and do nothing but tell everybody what could have been, may have been, should have been, or you move on. You set yourself new ambitions, new goals. You try and learn from any mistakes you feel you may have made along the way. For me, it was easy. Move on. Prove to the world I wasn't too hard, I wasn't past it, but I could once again be a world beater in athletics. I got through the winter and into the summer of 2009. And in 2009, after 12 years international athletics, I decided to retire. I worked out that with 3 years into London 2012, that would equate to about 1,400 training sessions. And I didn't know if my body would sustain that without any more long periods of injury. So on the 20th of July 2009, I put on my break for invest one last time. And I stepped out in front of 19,000 people at the Crystal Palace Grand Prix. Now, as an athlete, that was a great honour to choose when and how I retired. So when I look back at my life and my career, and I think about all the highs and all the lows, all the races won, all the races lost, and I work within businesses. I've been working with businesses for over 20 years, helping them understand what high performance looks like and how to implement it. And what is it that makes some businesses more successful than others, even though they seem to be doing the same thing? Well, I think it comes down to the 5 key elements, the 5 key elements to success. You have to have a goal. We get that. We understand what goals are. You know, long-term goals, short-term goals, career goals, personal goals. You know what your goals are. Me, never wanted to make mine complicated. I only wanted to be number 1 in the world. But what is a goal? It's just words. It has no meaning. We can all say things. We can all say, I want to be a multi-millionaire. I want to sell my business. I want to drive a Ferrari. That doesn't mean anything. They are just words. The true magic happens in the meaning behind the goal. You see, the reason I wanted to be number 1 in the world is not so that I can stand in front of people and say, hey, guess what? I used to be number 1 in the world at something I did ages ago. It's because I saw the accolade those athletes held. And you would have seen in the 2 races I showed you, I came across a guy by the name of Kona Omar, who's from the Ivory Coast. He had the world record before I took it off of him. He broke it when he was 18 years old. He was a formidable athlete. Whenever we used to line up alongside him, all the other athletes would look at each other and go, well, who wants silver today then? I wanted to be that athlete. I wanted to be the athlete that my rivals both feared and respected in equal measures. So I knew not only what I wanted to do, but most importantly, why I wanted to do it. Now, you can't just say see when you get there. You have to plan the journey. Now, in sport, we tend to work on a 4-year cycle, the Olympic/Paralympic cycle. See, I sat down with my coach in 2000 and we spoke about 2004. And he said, well, man, that race didn't quite go according to plan, did it? Bronze medal? What's next for Athens? What's the goal? And I said, that's easy, Ao. My coach's name is Ao Falola. I said, gold medal, probably 800 metres. We already knew I was looking to step up a distance. He said, all right, if you want that gold medal in 4 years' time, what kind of time do you think you're going to have to run? And I said about 1 minute, 53 seconds. He said, okay, how do we make that happen? We planned in 2004. He said, if you're going to run 1 minute 53 in 2004, what are you going to do in 2003? I said 1 minute 54, 1 minute 55. He said, all right, how do we make that happen? We planned 2003. We took it all the way back to current day. Now, that doesn't mean we stuck to that plan. But if you don't have something written down in the first place, you have nothing to deviate off of. So I not only knew what I wanted to do, but I also understood how I was going to get there. Now, no one can be successful on their own. Everybody needs the team around them. It's never more apparent than it is in sport nowadays. We have so many influences. We have event managers, competition managers, team managers. We have fitness coaches, conditioning coaches, strength coaches, speed coaches. We have psychologists, psychiatrists, physios, doctors, chiropractors, nurses, you name it. We have it. If we don't have it, they get one. All these influences coming into us at once. But then you have one key person, your coach, your boss, your line manager. The difference with this person is you have to trust them implicitly, because in their hands, they hold your entire career. My coach told me when I was training, when I wasn't training, what sessions I was doing, when I couldn't race. We even planned the race plans together. I had to trust him. But on the flip side, he has to trust me. He has to know that when he sets those training sessions, that I'll do them the best of my physical and mental ability. He has to know that I will follow everything through. He has to know that when we try and set a race plan, I will try and stick to it. So that was my professional network. But we also need our support network around us, our friends and family. Because as everyone understands, when life is going well, it's easy. But as we often find out in life, it's not always easy. Sometimes life is tough and it throws us a curveball. This is where you need your friends and family. These are the people who put their arm around your shoulder and they say, hey, we believe in that goal you set yourself. We still believe in that goal you set yourself. Why have you stopped believing? Or they can give you that all-important kick up the backside that even the most driven and dedicated of us need every now and again. So then what I wanted to do, how I was going to get there, who's going to help me. And this is where the magic happens. You have to constantly evaluate what you're doing. You see, when I sat down with my coach in 2000, we talked about 2004, I had to find 4 seconds if I wanted to win that medal. Now, to most people, 4 seconds is nothing. It's the blink of an eye. But to a track athlete, it's an eternity, it's a lifetime. We don't deal in seconds, we deal in hundredths of a second. 4 seconds is about 30 odd meters on the track to me. Imagine the mentality. You've run the fastest race you've ever run in your life, you land in a puddle on the floor, coach comes over and says, that's absolutely brilliant, and you just run a personal best. Any chance you can get 30 meters faster? It doesn't work like that. But my coach went, it's not 4 seconds now. It's 1 second a year. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? But even 1 second, it's 7 or 8 meters on the track. How do you find an extra 7 or 8 meters when you've just run the fastest race of your life? My coach went even better than that. Half a second every 6 months. Starts to sound just a little bit achievable, doesn't it? Listen to this, the simplest maths you will ever hear in your life. My coach sat me down and he said, Dan, if you can get 1/4 of a second faster every 3 months, you could be a champion. How simple is that? 1/4 of a second every 12 weeks. That's all I had to focus on. And I had the chance to fight for that gold medal. That's how we did it. Constantly chipping away every single day, trying to be 1% better than we was the day before. Every day looking for that 100th of a second. And that's how we do it in sport. If we do that in business, we get everyone within a business, everyone in your individual teams to work that 1% better. You don't have to be a mathematician to work out how all these 1% come together to give you a huge gain. So those are the 5 key elements of success. But they don't work if you don't have the 6th one, the drive, the passion, the ambition, the goal, because that is the thing that will keep you going. And how do we get through the tough times in life? It's easy. You not only remind yourself of the goal you set yourself, but the magic, the reason behind the goal. Because the reason behind the goal will get you through the tougher times. So having lived my life like that for 12 years, every single day trying to be better than I was the day before, every single day trying to be 1% better, I found myself wanting and needing. I no longer had a goal, I no longer had a reason to get out of bed. I had to put something back. Me being me, it was never going to be small. So in June of 2011, I did the iconic John O'Groats the Land's End bike ride, 1,000 miles in 9 days, about 130, 140 miles a day. In 2012, you can't forget what happened in 2012, the London Olympic and Paralympic Games. Now, unfortunately for me, London 2012 was 1 Games too far. But I was very fortunate. I was on stage in Trafalgar Square in 2005 when the announcement was made, and the Games are awarded to London. But you have to remember, when that announcement was made, I was standing on stage next to Kelly Holmes, Steve Cram, and a plethora of international athletes. But at that current time, I was the current Paralympic champion, I was the current world record holder, I was currently ranked #1 in the world, and I had every intention to compete at London 2012. But as age and injury caught up with me, it became apparent that London was going to be 1 Games too far. So I switched my attention to broadcast. I was now working in television, I was working for Channel 4, and I was covering all of their Paralympic sport. I worked in the 2011 World Athletics Championships in New Zealand, but now it was the time of the London Paralympic Games. And I have to say, one of the greatest honours I've had was to work in that stadium, covering the Paralympic Games, showcasing what Britain does best, sport, and bringing people together. I've done many other challenges in my life. I've done multiple marathons, I've done SS selection marches. But when I think back of all the stuff I've done in my life and all the highs, all the lows, the fact that I've won races at every major level, but I've also lost them. I lost mine in a car crash. I've been a scuba diving instructor. I've worked all over the world teaching to scuba dive. I've been a shark display diver, international athlete for 12 years. I've run multiple marathons and very, very multiple other things along the way. None of that matters anymore because I did Celebrity MasterChef in 2015. 12 years, international athletics comes down to one thing: to getting to put the sugar in a rhubarb crumble. Now, why MasterChef, you ask? Why bring up MasterChef? Especially if you went out on something like forgetting to put sugar in a crumble. Well, MasterChef was really important to me because it reminded me of something: the importance of stepping outside your comfort zone. Remember I spoke about trying to get 4 seconds faster, trying to be a quarter of a second every 12 weeks. The only way you can do that is by stepping outside that comfort zone. If you do the same things you've done before, guess what you get? You get the same results. I had to be prepared to do things differently. It didn't mean push harder in training, although that was part of it. It's not as simple as that. It's about trying different things. It's about experimenting, seeing what works, what doesn't work. And if even it doesn't work, what can we learn from that? There's always something to learn. MasterChef reminded me of that. I'd forgotten how important that was. And it took me back to a place of being an athlete again. You know, always striving for something, always working for the next thing. So I take that forward now. And that lesson that I learned from MasterChef, I've now carried that through with everything I do. But I know what you're thinking. Yeah, that's enough about MasterChef. We only want to know one thing. Did you get the apron? I'm an Essex boy. Of course I got an apron. Might have got two. But what was important more so than getting through to the quarterfinals of MasterChef, more so than cooking in the 5-star restaurant in the Shah, more so than cooking for 150 people at Wimbledon, it was that lesson. So going forward, I now have a performance business. I work with a partner, Andrew Cohen-Ray, and we take all the lessons that I've learned from international sport and working with businesses all around the world. He's a mental performance coach. He works with Formula One drivers. He takes all that science that sits behind that and process improvement that you learn along the way. We create a business called Fortino Performance where we work with people and individuals to help them perform at a high level. How can they be that 1% better? Now, it's hard to do a presentation in this day and age, bearing in mind that I stand in front of a camera instead of on a stage, without talking about the current situation. What's going on in our lives? Remember those 3 words: control the controllables. We have no control over the fact of what's going on. We can't control where we can go almost, where we can go on holiday. We can't control how many people we can socialise with. I can't control that I love standing on stage in front of people getting feedback from the audience. But what I can control is how I react to it. So I now deliver virtually. I try to adapt to my presentation to enable to do it virtually. And that's what's important, is how we adapt to these situations. Because our lives are full of defining moments. Some of these moments are thrust upon us, but some of them are direct results of decisive decisions that we take in our lives. The defining moment for me is I had a car crash. I didn't choose that. That just happened. But the decisive decision I took was to not let life drift along without me, to get back out and give life a go. I choosing to play that first game of rugby, that was televised. Someone from the Paralympic Association saw that and read the written press and realised I used to be a track and field athlete. Eventually, they persuaded me back into athletics. I guess the rest is history. So I urge you, never be scared to take a decisive decision in your life, because you don't know what defining moment that can and will lead you on to. Now, that's easier said than done. So I tried to live my life by one simple rule. And I believe we should never dwell on life's mistakes and misfortunes. We should learn from them, move on, and it will make you a stronger and better person. So thank you for listening. Happy to answer questions about just about anything.
Yeah, Danny, when was the last time you went diving with sharks?
It's been a long time, actually. It's been a while, but I have I've been scuba diving. I'm not an instructor anymore. I still hold that qualification. You have to stay, for obvious reasons, you have to stay current with your diving. And obviously, you have to keep up to date with your diving. I haven't done that, so I can't teach at the moment. I'll have to refresh. But 2 years ago, I went scuba diving with my oldest son for the first time. He was with the instructor, and I was just following along behind. And that was pretty cool to introduce him to that underwater world and to let him experience what I've experienced so many times. But yeah, diving was amazing. And a lot of stuff we do in our business is about language, and I had to use that in scuba diving, because there is no grey area when you do your diving exams, especially when you're becoming an instructor, because you're responsible for people, up to 8 people at a time underwater. So there was no, oh, don't worry about that bit, Dan, because you're disabled, you can get away with that one. when I sat those exams, the trainer that was training me to be an instructor went through it with me. He said, basically, you either pass or you fail. There is nothing in the middle. So you can either demonstrate the skills safely or do the life-saving skills safely to the letter of the law, or you can't and you fail. So we had to adapt and find ways to do things. And a lot of the demonstration stuff I do was all about language. It's about how, rather than it's showing you how to take your BCD off underwater and put it back on again and stuff that you do in an emergency, I had to explain it very carefully as well as demonstrate it. And it's all about language, and that's what we carry into the business world now. Is everything we do is about language. It's about how we communicate with each other. That's how we get the best out of people. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going diving again.
Danny, so you obviously done some amazing stuff. What's next for you?
So for me, it's always about, whatever I do, it's about being the best version of me that I can be. I've had, and it doesn't always mean being number one in the world. I've always held this belief in life, and that is for everyone who's successful, there's 10 that could have been more so. So for every David Beckham, for every Roger Federer, for every Adele, you know, no matter what your genre is, be it film, music, sport, for everyone, be it business, you know, look at the entrepreneurs out there. For everyone who's made it, there's probably 10 that were better. Now, out of those 10, 1 or 2 are lost to circumstance. That's life. It can be cruel. But many of those are lost because as soon as life gets tough, they step back. Now, I always had this belief, I'd rather be the guy that says I tried to be, not the guy that says I could have been. And we've all got one of those mates in the pub who say, oh, you know that business that sold for 85 million? I had that idea, I could have done that. Oh, I could have been a Premiership footballer if only I hadn't started drinking, smoking and chasing women. No, I could have done that. I never wanted to be that guy. I always wanted to be the guy that says I tried to be. Failed miserably at it, gave it a damn good go though and had a laugh along the way. And that's what's next for me, really. So I still work in television. I should have very recently been back from Tokyo 2020. I've now got to prepare for Tokyo 2021, just like the athletes. They had no control over it. All they can do is work out what they're going to do next, how they're going to prepare for 2021. Because the athletes that are still reveling in the lost games, the fact that they was fit in 2020, are the ones that are going to really struggle in 2021. The ones that could just draw the line in the sand and go, well, that wasn't great. I really could have done racing this year, but now I'm just going to concentrate on next year. They're the ones that will be successful. And that's just what I try to do. So I refocus and I move on. So my whole business world has changed. I usually stand in front of people on stage or with teams working within a business. That's very difficult now. So I've adapted the way I deliver my presentations. But whatever I do, it's about trying to do it to the best of my ability. Trying to be that 1% better. Always looking how I can improve stuff. And that's what's next for me, really. It's building the business, but building the business in a different way now than what we was going before. Where it was targeting businesses to actually go and deliver live, we now know that it's very difficult. And a lot of businesses are going to be very nervous about that. So now it's about delivering virtually. So having a product that we're proud of, that we can put out to businesses, but they still get that same impact that you would get from being in the room. And the odd sporting challenge.
Thank you.
Is that questions? Well, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I wish you all the very, very best. And once again, I'll just leave you with that final question, really. What is your 1% better?